hardy, great for these very windy conditions, as you can probably see. We're getting blown around here even today. And these are our light terracotta pots, actually fake terracotta, and I think they do a really great job with the color of the deck, the combination, and also the fact that they're pretty portable. We can move this around if we have to without killing ourselves. Here's our table, which we chose. We scaled this down a little bit from the one that was originally here. I think the color goes really well with the gray of the decking. It adds a little note of formality into otherwise a very informal city setting, which is kind of cool. And over here, this is my favorite part of all. Here are our cedar planters with our trellis in the back. Now I want to tell you about this color combination and plant combination because it's really one of my favorites. It's sort of my trade secret, which I'm afraid is going to be a trade secret no more. This is Lonicera Gold Flame, and if we can just get something here in the blossom, this is a little beat up of a blossom but because of the wind, but you can actually see the colors, the pink and the gold here, and it's going to grow to cover this entire backdrop of this wooden trellis and sort of hide the building that we don't want to see behind us and give us a little bit of privacy. Now over here, we have one of my favorite of what are commonly called the landscape roses. This is Rose Betty Pryor. This was actually introduced in the early 30s, I think 35 or so. And it was really one of the first of these families of ever-blooming roses. Now, I kind of like the single blossoms of this, but these so-called landscape roses will continue to bloom the entire season on and off, providing a wonderful burst of color. Now, right next to it, we have Caryopteris. This is Blue Mist. Some of you may not be familiar with this. This is a wonderful early fall, late summer blooming perennial that will bloom with a sea of blue color, really a terrific plant to have right next to this pink of the rose. And in front, finally, we have Artemisia Powys Castle, which is going to add a hint of gray and act sort of as a foil to the pink and the blue of the Caryopteris. Now, this is a permanent planting. It's going to stay in these containers, so it'll be full of color from spring to fall without having to do anything except water and fertilize. Now, the next time we come back here, we're going to finish up the roof deck. We're going to do all the annual and other flower plantings and install our flower boxes and plant our étagères, and so you can really see what the icing on the cake is going to look like. It's going to be great fun. If you think gardening is all about big suburban yards and spending lots of money and the latest tools, and have been dissuaded from gardening because of that, we have a story for you that I think will really inspire you and turn you on to gardening. I'm here at the Berkeley Street Community Gardens, and I'm about to meet Roger Stearns, who's been involved with this project for 25 years. Roger, thank you so much for having us here.
Michael, welcome to Berkeley.
Tell me a little bit about the whole history of this place.
This garden began after row houses were torn down in the 60s, Michael, and it was originally planned to be Highway I-91, which was going to run through the center of the city and become the sort of inner belt. And I think after the west end was torn down, the neighbors in the south end decided they'd like to keep it as open space.
Just revolted, essentially.
Yeah.
So how did the first people actually get gardening here?
The Asian community basically came in and started gardening on what were the backyards and the leftover land after the buildings were torn down. So they're very frugal, first-generation gardeners from China mostly. And the garden was about 95% Asian when I came.
This is a sort of connection in many ways to the countries and cultures that they left behind.
Yes, it is.
You know, it just amazes me how beautifully tended a lot of these gardens are. I mean, the care that goes in, and there's nothing simple, there's nothing fancy. It's old plastic pots, it's bits and pieces of stakes. The staking, I guess, is what for growing melons and other uprights later on in the year, right? That's what all the trellising and wire is actually for.
Later in the season, Michael, it's totally a green wall on the horizontal and the vertical. So you can't really see into the gardens. This is a wonderful time of year because you can peek in, see people working their harvest. They do complete broadcasting, very little opening of rows. Massive amount of food can come out of a very small 10 by 15 space.
We're actually here to learn a little bit about Asian vegetables, and you have something to show us, a very special garden.
I do. I have a wonderful gardener, Mrs. Chan, and she basically is symbolic of most of the gardeners here, so she was kind enough to let us come and speak with her today.
Well, let's go see.
Great.
Oh, this is
Alice.
Incredibly beautiful. Alice, it's so nice to meet you.
This is Michael from the Victory Gardens.
Nice to meet you too.
Come to see your garden.
This is totally beautiful. Tell me, what's growing here?
Oh, this is the gai choy.
Gai choy.
Yep. This is the bok choy.
Bok choy. Oh, I love bok
This is
choy.
cilantro.
Cilantro. Boy, that's really terrific. And what do we have going back here? Are these leeks?
Leeks.
Leeks. And what is this?
Gao gi.
Gao gi. I don't know what that is.
It's a wonderful medicinal plant that's grown almost like a hedge, and almost all of the Asian gardeners grow it in Berkeley. It's for the stomach, Alice,
Yeah, for the whole body.
the whole body.
Yeah.
And you make a tea or a soup, or
Make sure.
make a soup out of it.
And what is this actually? What's growing?
I
This
don't
is-
know. What kind of
Like a winter melon. Is it a fuzzy melon or a winter
I don't
melon?
know.
They can grow up to 1,000 pounds of winter melon in these gardens.
Really?
They're very, very long, and they weigh
They
about
grow.
25 or 30 pounds a piece.
Yeah.
And that's really their prize. That's the competitive vegetable in Berkeley. They all compete for the heaviest melon.
And then they actually are they're storable melons. They
They
don't.
store them, they cut off chunks in the winter, right, Alice? When it's
Yeah.
cool, you cut off pieces of it and make soup or
and
soups.
you can cook it with the meat. Sometimes we cook with the spare rib and mushroom, the joy mushroom.
Spaghetti and mushrooms.
Yeah.
Tell me about actually a little bit about the trellising, because I think that's really interesting as well.
The gardeners have to support up to 1,000 pounds of squash, so they pick up odds and ends around. It's a wonderful recycling program.
It is, exactly.
And the beauty of this, Michael, it looks a little strange right now. It's very barren, but in the late summer, it's totally green. It's like a green box. And the gardens are very three-dimensional.
Not an inch of space is wasted.
Right.
Well, Alice, this is a very beautiful garden. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
having
much.
us.
Thank you.
Well, now we are suitably inspired, and we're going to go back to the Victory Garden kitchen and be cooking with Asian vegetables ourselves, now that we actually know a little something about them, right?
Right.
Well, we were so inspired by our visit to the Berkeley Street Community Gardens and learning about Asian vegetables that we asked Ming Tsai, chef owner of the Blue Ginger in Boston, the famous restaurant, and also the latest recipient of the Best Chef of the Northeast, James Beard Award, I understand. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And he's going to come and talk to us about bok choy, which is one of the best of the Chinese vegetables.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Great to be here. We're actually using Shanghai bok choy. Shanghai cabbage tends to be a little bit longer and has a little bit sweeter taste.
You know, the big bok choy that I normally see at the market, can you use those? Yeah, huge one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this recipe, what we're doing is a bok choy stuffed with the rock shrimp mousse and also some shiitake caps, also stuffed with the rock shrimp mousse.
Well, that
And
sounds really
if
good.
you can't get this type of bok choy, you could actually use something like a radicchio or a Napa cabbage, which is a little bit sweeter than the regular cabbage.
All right, sounds good to me.
Shall we get started?
Yeah,
Let's go over
absolutely.
here. Let's make the mousse first.
Put me to work.
And once you throw the rock shrimp in the
Okay.
food processor.
All of
there.
them?
All of it. That's a pound and a half there.
Whoops, one on the floor. Who cares about
Good
that?
luck. Always drop one rock shrimp on
Okay.
the floor, Michael. Very good. 2 eggs. And this is the white part of a bunch of scallions.
Okay.
All right. Let me get a little bit of salt and pepper here.
Now these rock shrimp, are these a special type of shrimp?
They're called rock shrimp. They're shrimp from around here. And
But you could use any kind of
you
shrimp.
could use that. You could use regular peeled shrimp. It has to be raw shrimp. You can't
Okay.
buy obviously cooked
Okay.
shrimp. And you just puree. You don't want to get it super smooth. You want to kind of rough, basically like that.
Sort of like a paste almost.
There you go. And we'll
Okay.
take that off. You grab that bowl, bring it towards me, Michael.
All right.
And we will, right there.
Right there.
You want to do me the honors and scrape that out.
Absolutely.
Now this is a little bit loose, so we have to tighten it up, and what we're going to use is actually sushi rice. So traditionally, the Italians might use breadcrumbs or something. Here we're going to use sushi rice. We're going to take about a cup of this. If you can bring that spoon back for me.
Bring the spoon back. Okay.
And just go ahead and fold that together.
Okay. This is my folding technique. How am I doing
There
here?
you go. It's kind of like a spatula, or what's it, trowel? There we go.
Now, if you can't find sushi rice, if you're in a part of the country where that's not around, can you use
And,
regular rice?
Any rice would work. The idea is you need a type of rice that's going to soak up the extra moisture.
Arborio, for instance.
A bori would work, absolutely. And just a regular long grain, even a Mexican rice, any of those would work.
Okay.
All right.
Am I just continuing to fold
Just
here?
mix it well.
Okay.
I'm going to take these scallions off the board, and we're going to build together kind of like a stuffed bok choy. All right. So here I have a bok choy that I just broke apart and washed up. It's really important that you wash bok choy because you can have little pieces of sand. That's not sand. Even though it looks like sand, that's just part of some markings on the bok choy.
Oh, I see. I thought I thought you weren't doing a good job on the washing.
Yeah,
there.
no. My prep cooks are good. And then what you do, and I like to use just wet hands because
Okay.
then the mousse won't stick to you.
Well, that's a good tip.
And you take a little bit, and like the small one, I'm just going to go ahead and envelop like that. All right, so then you have layer 1. And then I'm going to put another layer about right there, and then you're going to slowly build this bok choy, and you're going to even put stuff in the leaf here.
Oh,
Okay.
I see.
And then
So this is stuffing is not so much really the case as we're sort of assembling.
you know, it looks kind of messy now, but then you take your last sleeves, and again, with clean hands, you can just take a little bit more. This is basically the glue.
It is like glue.
And then you take it in your hand like this, right? And you kind of smooth it out.
Okay, so this isn't a delicate operation. Anyone can do
There you
this.
go. Then you get the bok choy, all right?
that's
And then we're going to steam that.
Okay.
Now, because we have wonderful shiitakes here as well, shiitake mushrooms, by far one of my favorites, just take the stem off, same mousse. We're just going to pile a little dollop on top like that. All right?
Huh. Whoop.
There we go. One more like that. And that's the recipe. So you take the lid off of that,
Okay.
put them in a steamer, and
Now, this is a pretty fancy steamer. Do you have to have a special steamer like this?
No,
to do
you
this?
can use any normal steamer. You can even the steamer, you know, the wire one that fits into your stock pot works fine. Just make sure that the water never touches the product.
Okay.
All right. So
Back.
we steam this. Yeah, put it back on. It's raw shrimp. You got to steam for about 8 minutes.
Okay.
And after about
Wow.
8 minutes time,
That was
you're going
unique.
to end up with something like that. All right. So
Holy
let's go ahead
smokes.
and let's plate this up here and show you what it looks like when it's all ready to go. I'll take the bok choy out first. Got to be a little bit more delicate. See that? It kind of holds together though because it's the shrimp cooks, right?
Okay.
There's egg in the shrimp.
So it's sticking together
yeah,
here.
it totally sticks
Okay.
together. Putting grapeseed oil and a little bit of fresh ginger, and we're gonna flash this bok choy with it, right? And then we'll take this, and you don't want to grab the ginger. The ginger's there to flavor the oil, all right? So
Oh,
you
we're
take
gonna
this
put
hot
this on
oil,
here.
a little hot oil. You should have a little bit of
Isn't
sizzle.
that clever?
Just a touch. And then last but not least, you're going to take just a little bit of soy sauce just to kind of bring it all together. And that is all you need to do. And that's the dish. It's so simple. It's kind of an interesting way to eat bok choy, but it's not just one of those straight up bok choys that are just stir fried with garlic.
Well, I can hardly wait to taste this. Is this ready to go?
That's ready to go. Once you
Okay.
just got some chopsticks there.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. I love wine. I'm sure you drink wine as well.
Yes, I know. Where's
great-
the glass?
Yeah, I know. I
Where's
tell
the
you,
glass?
I wish there was a glass, but the
Oh, God.
a great wine with this is a Sauvignon Blanc. There's one called Neo Ellis from New Zealand. Has a great crispness and a tropical flavor to it.
We're here in Boston at the Arnold Arboretum, which has one of the largest collections in the country of lilacs. And we're about to take a tour to learn everything you need to know to grow these beauties in your own backyard. I could stay here all day with this incredible scent, but fortunately it's time to start our tour. And Steve Schneider, who is here from the Arboretum, one of the gardeners who keeps this fantastic collection going. Now, I understand there's 300 varieties or more
About 350 different
of
varieties.
a number of species. What, 20 some?
Yeah, between 15 and 20.
Tell me a little bit about the basics to really get lilacs to do what they need to do for me.
A lot of people wonder why the lilacs aren't flowering. One of the common problems is that they just haven't had them in the ground long enough. It takes between 5 and 6 years for the plants to actually throw good flower sets.
From taking them out of the nursery, it'll take 5 more years in general?
Yeah, about that.
All right, so patience is a key.
Yes.
What about soil? I noticed that they're planted here on a slope, and I was reading, and I actually didn't know this, that lilacs aren't very particularly fond of wet feet. So
That's true.
Good drainage is really key.
Good drainage is key, and good airflow, and to keep certain types of fungus, such as powdery mildew, off of the leaves. So having them on this hillside sort of facilitates that.
Now, we have a couple really old lilacs at the Victory Garden that we need a little bit of help with rejuvenating. Do you have some secrets of success, some tips for us?
Sure, why don't we take a walk up there?
Okay, let's do it. Well, Steve, this looks exactly like many of the lilacs we have back at the Victory Garden. And I got to tell you, I've been really hesitant to do any pruning because I don't want to cut off the flower.
Right.
But ultimately, they all look like this, where all the flowers are sparse and kind of up on the top. I mean, how do you actually get them back into shape?
Well, you start by taking out a third every year for 3 years. And to start, something like this here,
Yeah.
this was done improperly. These tiny little branches are growing off of this larger branch, and it's going to cause problems in the future. It's just a weak link, and
Gonna
storms
snap in
are
a
going to
storm.
snap right
Okay.
off. Yeah.
You want to go all the way down to the
Right
ground?
down
is that?
to the base.
Okay. So how do you actually choose? Which one of these guys, or which number of these guys do you actually choose to cut down? We're going to take a third.
Okay, yeah, well, to start, here's a good example. This branch right here, if you look up, you'll see that all of the growth and the flowers, they're concentrated at the top. There's really nothing going down here at the bottom. So I would just take this branch right out, down to the base of the plant, and start from there.
And so what are we looking for? We're looking for suckers that actually emerge from the ground.
Yes.
Like those few in the center there.
Yes, we're concentrating the energy into smaller suckers, say like here, and something, you know, down here. And at the same time, by taking out these larger limbs, we're letting in more light, and that's going to encourage the growth also.
All right, now I have one last question. Not all lilacs smell the same. I thought lilacs were lilacs, but they all have distinctly different scents, don't they?
That's true, that's true. Why don't you come over here? I'll show you this one.
Okay. Go this way. What is this?
This is Syringa chinensis.
Move this to my yard when we're done.
Well, everyone says that.
Yeah, you're right. It's like, get your hands off our lilacs. Oh, wow, that is amazing. Now, that's a little more subtle, sort of a hint of allspice. The variety in lilacs is just really incredible. Now, I understand that some of the modern cultivars don't have a lot of scent.
That's true. Some of them don't. Some of them have been hybridized to go for more display instead of scent.
Well, that's not my kind of lilac, so if you're in my camp, you need to actually take a look at the lilacs and come to a place like the Arnold Arboretum or any of the botanical gardens where there are great lilac collections, and take a moment to smell them. They come in a huge variety of shapes, sizes, and scents. Steve, thank you so much for the tour. It's been really informative.
Thank you for coming.
I think I'll just stay here for just a while longer. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week. But next week on the Victory Garden, we have a planting extravaganza planned. We're going to tell you everything you need to know to get your soil ready, both for veggies and for flowers. We're going to be talking tomatoes, and I don't just mean beefsteaks, heirloom varieties in profusion. And I'm going to show you how to get beauties like these out of your garden. So be sure to tune in next week for a brand new edition of the Victory Garden.